Okay, so let's start today's session. So in this session, we are going to discuss the desirable properties of a transaction. In short, we call as asset properties. And next to that, we are going to discuss introduction to schedules. Here, what do you mean by a schedule, and why, in where the schedules are used. And the next topic is characterizing schedules based on recoverability. So based on recoverability property or a characteristics, how we can classify the schedule. So here recoverable schedule, cascading schedule, and strict schedule. So these are the different types of schedules comes under recoverability properties, right? So first we'll discuss about desirable properties of a transaction. So here you can see it is actually advisable, or if it is recommended properties of a transaction. Whenever you are dealing with more number of transaction or even a single transaction in the databases, it is desired to have the transaction property, that is asset properties. Okay, that is in the asset properties. There are four main properties are there for each and every transaction. These are the desirable properties. So here one is atomicity, second consistency preservation, I stands for isolation, and D stands for durability or permanency. Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss now. And the atomicity property, as we discussed many times, when a transaction is happening, the transaction should be completed to its fullness or entirety, or not performed at all. That is, the transaction should be totally cancelled. Okay, that is the first property says about the transaction. Whenever we start any transaction in the databases, the transaction should be able to complete. And if for any reason, if the transaction is not able to complete 100%, then the transaction should be cancelled. Okay, that is what the first property says. And the second property is consistency preservation. That is, when a transaction happens in the databases, the transaction after completing the transaction or after successful completion of the transaction, the database or the data should be converted or could be transferred from one consistent state to the another state. Okay. For example, if you are having your in your bank account 5,000 as a balance, and suppose if you are transferring some amount from your account to the other person account, for example 1,000 rupees you are transferring. So after the the complete transaction, successful completion of your transaction, the account balance of your account should be decremented by 1,000 rupees. That is, now it should be 4,000, and the beneficiary or the other person's account should be added with 1,000 rupees. Okay. So it is actually the data is changing from one consistent state to the another consistent state after the successful transaction, right? The third property is isolation property. So whenever maybe in the practical usage, there will be more number of transactions will be happening in the databases, right? There will be hundreds and hundreds, or sometimes it depends on the application. Thousands and thousands of transactions might occur in a database. When more number of transactions are occurring, a particular transaction should be isolated from all other transactions until it is committed. Okay, for example, we can take three transactions, T1, T2, and T3. If all three transactions are sharing some data in the databases and it is in the process, and that transaction T1 should not know anything about transaction T2 and transaction T3, right? Similarly, if the transaction T3 should not interfere or should not know anything about transaction T1 and T2 until the transaction T1 and T2 is successfully completed, right? So that isolation should be maintained in the database transaction. And the fourth one is durability or permanency. So here, after modifications of the database, for any reason, if the database or if the content is deleted, so that should not be there. For the meaning is after the commit happens in the databases, whatever the modification is done by the transaction, that should be permanently changed. Okay, So whatever the data is modified by a particular transaction in the database, after the commit process, after the commit command, the data should be permanently modified in the database. That's what the durability or permanency, right? So must never be lost because of subsequent failure. So after the commit is done, suppose in case of any other failure occurs in the database, the data should not be deleted, right? So whatever the modification is done, that modification should be permanently changed in the database, right? So these are the 4 desirable, advisable, and the recommended properties of any transaction, right? So in the database management system, all the 4 desirable properties can be followed, right? So the first one is atomicity, second one consistency preservation, third one isolation, and fourth one durability or permanency. So this is what we have in the transaction properties. And so next to this, we have the schedules of transaction, right? So schedule, first we'll see what is the literal meaning for schedule. Suppose if you have more number of tasks to be performed, and then you'll be allocating the task with time period, right? So you'll be having a kind of schedule, or you'll be assigning some time period for a particular task. The same way here, when multiple transactions are happening, the multiple transaction can be combined as a group or under a single schedule, and this schedule can be processed to complete a full task. Okay, so for example, if the transaction is completing a smaller set of tasks, and maybe more number of transactions will be available in the schedule, right? So in a database management system, if you have more transactions to be performed under a particular category or under a particular schedule, then you can proceed according to the schedule, right? So that's what we call history of transaction. That means when a particular transaction is starting, when it is doing its read and write operation, and when the next transaction is starting, and when it is doing its read and write operation, in which order or in which sequence all the operations are carried out in the entire schedule. So that's what we are going to discuss here, right? So in the transaction schedule or the history, when transactions are executing concurrently in an interleaved fashion, the order of execution of operations from the various transaction forms, what is known as a transaction schedule, right? So maybe when you're executing many number of transactions, the order of execution in the transaction may be interleaving. Okay, you know what in interleaving? That is allowing one transaction in between the execution of the another transaction. Okay, that is, there will be an interchange of execution in the transaction, right? So that we are going to discuss in the next slide. And here is schedule or a history of transaction. Suppose you have n number of transactions. So maybe for our understanding, we'll take about 10 transactions are there, right? So in the 10 transaction, it is an ordering of the operation of the transaction subject to the constraint that for each transaction, TA participates in S. The operations of TA in S must appear in the same order in which they occur in T1. For example, if you have T1 and T2, in the T1 also you'll be having set of read and write operation, and in the transaction T2 also you will be having set of read and write operation. Okay, so here in the schedule, what is the condition is in which order read and write operations are available in the transaction T1 as well as in the transaction T2. Even though if it allows the interleaving operation, the same sequence or the same order of execution of your read and write operation should be followed in the schedule also, right? So maybe you can take this example. In the schedule of transaction, to understand the schedule, there are small symbols are given. B, R, W, E, C. B stands for begin transaction, and then read, R stands for read item, W, write item, and E, end transaction, and C, commit. Okay, so just you can look at this example. There are 2 transactions are given, right? So T1 and T2, right? So here T1 is having a number of read and write operations, and then T2 is also having number of read and write operation, right? And then again, when you look at this T1 and T2, there is a interleaving operation. That means the execution or the order of execution is in interleaving fashion. That means the transaction T1 will be performing read item and then doing some manipulations with the data. And again, the transaction T2 will be executing or reading the data item X and doing some manipulation. And again, it is actually interleaving to the transaction T1 again, and it performs the write operation, and again it reads the read item Y. So in this way, when you look at this transaction T1, the order of execution will be same. And then when you look at the transaction T2 also, the order of execution of the operations will be also same, right? Even though you are allowing in the interleaving fashion, if you make it as a complete schedule, whatever the operations you perform in the transaction, that should follow in the same order, okay? So that's what the concept here. See here, the above diagram we shall see can be written as following notation. S stands for the schedule S, okay? The S is a schedule. First one R1 of X, then R2 of X, W1 of X, R. Right. So here in the transaction, you can see in the schedule, if you have multiple transaction, the sequence of operations can be listed up like this. Okay. So this is what we say here, schedule. Then what do you mean by conflict in a schedule? You know what do you mean by conflict, right? So if there is an issue, or if there is a miscommunication, or there is a problem in executing the operations that is involved in the transaction, then you can say there is a conflict. Okay. Suppose you have two transactions. If the two transaction is not able to access a particular data item, or if you're not able to complete its process, then you can say there is a conflict in the schedule, right? So here in the when actually to have a conflict, you need to have at least minimum two operations. Okay, so they belong to different transactions should be there, and they access the same data item, and at least one of the operation is a write item. Okay, this is what we already discussed. To if any two transactions are having any kind of conflict, at least you should have two different transactions. Okay, so when you have a single only one transaction is there, and there won't be any issue in executing the single transaction. So there is no point of having conflict there, right? So at least you should have minimum two different transactions and sharing the same data item. Okay, suppose if you have two transaction T1 and T2, and T1 is accessing data item X, and then transaction T2 is accessing data item Y, right? T1 is accessing X and T2 is accessing Y, then there won't be any issue, right? Even if it is a two transaction, then there won't be any issue, right? And suppose the transaction T1 is accessing X data item, and transaction T2 is also accessing the same X data item, and there is a possibility for conflict. And even the condition is if both the transaction are trying to read the data item X. Okay, you have T1 and T2 and data item X. Now T1 is reading data item X simultaneously. T2 is also reading the data item X, and there is no possibility for conflicting there. The third condition is at least one of the operation in the transaction should be write item. Okay, so if the transaction T1 is using write, and then transaction T1 is using read, and there is a possibility for conflict. Okay, so these are the three main conditions we have. If satisfy all of the three conditions, then there is a possibility for conflict. Definitely there will be a conflict in the schedule, right? So here some description is given. So you have the schedule with R1 of X, R2 of X, W1 of X, R1 of Y, W2 of X, and commit of transaction 2, and W1 of Y with commit of transaction 1. Okay, so the final commit will be done by the transaction 1, right? Now you can see here R1 of X and W2 of X conflict because it is from two different transactions and I'm trying to access the same data item. And also the do the operations R2 of X and W1 of X. Okay, it satisfies the above condition. So there is a conflict. And the operation W1 of X and W2 of X, right? So we said already at least one write operation is there, then there is a possibility. Here, even though the data item is same and with different two transactions, transaction T1 and transaction T2, which is actually trying to access or write the same data item X, and there is a conflict here. And however, the operations R1 of X and R2 of X do not conflict. That's what I told you. When two read operation happening in the transaction with the same data item, there won't be any conflict. Here you can see R1 of X is transaction 1 of read operation and R2 of X is the transaction 2 of read operation, right? So here two transactions are there, R1 and R2, and again it is accessing the same data item X. But here it is actually performing read operation. So while performing the read operation, there is no need of conflicting there, right? So these are the some of the three main conditions are there. When these three main conditions are there, then there is a possibility for a conflict. Okay, so here R1 of X and W1 of X do not conflict because they belong to the same transaction. Suppose if only one transaction is there and again it is performing read operation and followed by the write operation, and there is no point of conflict. Okay, so this is what you need to understand. The three major conditions are given. If the three major conditions are satisfied, then there will be a conflict in the schedule. And what do you mean by complete schedule? Next one is complete schedule. Here the complete schedule, it is very easy to understand. Suppose the order of the read and write operation in a particular transaction is exactly followed in the schedule also without any misplacing, then you can call it as a complete schedule. A schedule S of a transaction, T1, T2, and n number of transactions are there. If it is should to be complete by following fulfilling the following condition, and the operation in S are exactly those operation in T1 and T2. That is, what are the transactions are used in the schedule. All the operations that are in the transaction is similar in the schedule also. Okay, I hope you will be able to understand. So whatever the read and write operation, the sequence is placed in the transaction. It is actually repeating as it is in the schedule itself. Then we can call it as a complete schedule, right? So even including a commit and abort operation. And the other condition is for any pair of operations from the same transaction Ti, the relative order of the appearance in CS is the same as the order of appearance in TA. So that means in which order it is followed. Okay, even the order of the operations in each and every transaction is also very important, right? So the first point is it is exactly repeating the sequence of operation, and the second point is just insisting even the order of the operation, any pair of operations from the same transaction, the relative order is also very much important. Okay, so in which position the orders are executed is also considered for complete schedule. And then for any two conflicting operations, one of the two must occur before the other in the schedule. Suppose if your transaction is conflicting one, then to avoid the confliction, what you can do, you can just change the order. Okay, for example, you have R1 of X and then W1, W2 of X, right? You have in the schedule R1 of X and W2 of X. Then what you can do to avoid the conflict or to make it as a complete schedule, then what you can do, you can change the order, right? So when you change this order, then you can say it is a complete schedule. And what is the characteristic? So that's what the other point we are going to discuss. Based on the recoverability property or the characteristics, we can classify the schedule into three types. One is recoverable schedule, and then another one is we have the cascading rollback strict schedules, and the another one is cascading schedule. Okay, so the first one we'll discuss about what is a recoverable schedule. Even though there is existence of the conflict in the schedule, it is again recoverable. Okay, you can recover the conflict. Okay, so it is possible to recover the conflict in the schedule. If you find those type of schedule, then you can call it as a recoverable schedule. Okay, able to understand? So if you have any schedule, you are using different transaction there, and if there is a possibility or if there is occurrence of uh, conflict there, then again, if it is able to recover, or if you are able to remove the conflict, then it is called as a recoverable schedule, right? So here, this example, you have T1 and T2, and just by you can see the order of operations here, and when you say, or when you do the commit in in the appropriate place in the schedule, then you can even recover it, right? Here the example is given. The schedule, the order of read and write operations are given, and this have conflict, yet to recover. That means to remove the conflict, what you are doing here, you will be introducing commit operation before the particular transaction gets over, right? So first, after writing the data item X in the transaction T2, and you say commit. Okay, so once the data is committed, when the transaction is committed, then again you are going for the first transaction for committing W1 of Y and then C1, right? So you are introducing commit operation to avoid the conflict. Thereby you can recover the conflict. And here, cascading rollback. Cascading rollback, what may be cascading? It is actually a series of transaction or series of occurrence, right? So maybe you can just understand with a simple example. In the playing cards, you'll be arranging your card in a series manner. Okay, so that is next to next, or one after the other, or back to back. Okay, so you'll be arranging your entire card in a series, right? So in that type of rollbacking, if you are applying in the transaction, then, or in the schedule, you can call it as a cascading rollback, right? So you can see this example. Here, there are three transactions are given: transaction T10, T11, and T12. Now, here what happens here? Read A, read B, and write A. This all happening in the transaction T10. So after the write A, what the transaction 11 is doing? The transaction 11 is taking the A value from the transaction T10, and it is doing some operation here. Okay, so then it is followed by write operation of A value. Then after that, what is happen? How it is then what is next happening here is the transaction T12 is reading the data A from the transaction T11. Okay, so you can see the series of operations are occurring in the all the three transactions. Now, suppose before committing, or for any reason, if the transaction T10 fails, okay, the transaction T10 fails, what will happen? Because the whatever the value are there in the transaction T10, that is A, is being used by transaction T11 and transaction T12, right? So suppose if any failure occurs in the transaction T10, then the next step, what you'll do, you have to cancel the entire transaction. That is, you have to go for rollback. Okay, for rollback, what you have to do, first you have to cancel or roll back the data item in the transaction T12, and then you have to roll back the data item A in the transaction T11, and then only you can cancel or roll back the data item A in the transaction T10. Okay, so this is how it works, right, in the schedule. So first, initially, it is actually happening, the transaction rollbacks are happening in the series fashion. First, the transaction, there is a data item A is rolled back in transaction T12, and next, after rollbacking, the transaction T11 is rolled backing the same data item, and finally, the transaction T10 can roll back the data item. Okay, so this is how the rollback is performing. In this manner, if it happens, then you can call it as a cascading rollback. And the strict schedule, so here the strict schedule, what happens here based on the recoverability property, the transaction the subsequent transaction or the second transaction in the schedule can commit only the commit of your first transaction. Okay, for example, here you have T1 and T2. So read A, write A, and then here transaction T2, read A and write A. Okay, the sixth schedule, what the sixth schedule says, to perform the commit operation in the transaction T2, it should be the commit operation should be done in the transaction T1 first. Okay, then only you can invoke the commit operation in the transaction T2, right? So this is how, if you are performing, then it is said to be the strict schedules. A schedule in which a transaction can neither read or write an item X until the last transaction that wrote X has committed. So until the commit operation is over, you the transaction which is actually using the other transaction data item cannot invoke a commit operation here. Okay, so this way you can apply the strict schedule, right? Okay.
Hey there. Subscribe to my channel. And also press this bell icon.